Hey everyone. Today we're talking about different kinds of employers and different ways of working as a designer. So I'm just going to list them off. To start, ad agencies. Ad agencies create advertising campaigns, promotions, brand awareness, marketing campaigns, as well as other more exotic projects. If this is the kind of thing you want to do, make sure you have examples of it in your portfolio. In the studio, you can be a creative working in partnership with another creative or working in a team. You can be the person or team that comes up with the concept for the campaign. You can be the writer. You can be the person that executes the concept, designing the ads. You can be the UI UX person, creating smooth interfaces for apps and websites. Sometimes you can be all of those things at the same time. Executing a concept for a campaign means assessing what would be the most effective channels for the campaign. Like, for instance, posters, magazines, billboards, but also like umbrellas, beer cans, taxis, buses, trains, subway platforms, subway cars, stair steps, like they have those steps that go down and Times Square station that have a little advertisement message on each of the steps. Uniforms, trucks, guerrilla advertising, skywriting, and all of that is before you get to the big kahuna, the many digital environments like social media, banner ads, email campaigns, websites, mini sites, internet animations, GIFs, animated posters, and of course, apps. And apps can be built that are specific to that campaign or product, or more like a big general tool for a company. There are television and internet ads involving video, animation, music to be shown on places like YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, network television, cable television, movie theaters, and animated posters. Sometimes there's like a small community, a hotel or an airline or a hospital or a doctor's office that will have content prepared just for the companies that are waiting around temporarily in that environment. You may have had the experience of waiting for a plane, and there's a screen that they're showing airline specific content, or in a dentist or doctor's office with a screen showing ads for drugs or toothpaste or tooth whitening, you know, the kind of stuff I mean. You can also be a presentation designer. That's someone who specializes in presenting a campaign concept to a client. So you don't work on the campaign, you just present it. Some of you are already pretty good at that, I have to say. There are lots of opportunities for creative work in an advertising agency. Sometimes design graduates will decide they want to work for a particular agency and they target that agency. They pester their way into the company by, starting as a receptionist or in the mailroom if mailrooms exist, and work their way into the creative department. Or you get an internship and you impress them so much that they hire you. You can make a lot of money in advertising. It can be very competitive, very demanding, and you work long hours. And it can also be a very fulfilling creative career. Next, design studios. These can focus in different directions. A graphic design studio can focus on branding, creating a brand, designing logos, corporate ID, the look of a company, fonts, colors, textures, taglines, collateral. Collateral means all the different materials that need to show the look of the brand, like stationery, the apps, the websites, social media, games, brochures, posters, reports, invites, in some case, branded carpeting or wallpaper, which I've definitely seen in corporate headquarters. I forget who it was. It was like Nike, some big brand like that. But they put the logo onto the bottom of a pair of sneakers so that everywhere you walked in the snow or in the mud or something, you were being followed by Nike logos, which is honestly a kind of clever idea. Another kind of design agency would focus on signage or wayfinding, like at a zoo or a subway system or a corporate compound or a university or hospital or a museum. Even a public park like Central Park needs signage. Department stores like Macy's definitely need signage. You can waste a lot of time looking for a particular department if the signage is lousy. Good signage can be crucial in an emergency situation. If there's a fire or a shooter attack or a sudden hurricane, good signage can easily show people the right way to get out of a dangerous situation and can literally save lives. One agency we visited in Paris designed the signage for an entire subway system in Lyon, in France. Signage in subways is really important. It's easy to get lost in the spaghetti junction of all those different subway lines and tunnels. I have to say, the New York subway system doesn't have the clearest signage in the world. Paris and London is pretty good. Another kind of agency could focus on packaging. A lot of print design is drifting over onto the internet, but packaging and labeling will always be here. Then there are specialist studios like animation studios. These can work on animations like cartoons for movies or TV shows or advertising. Other studios specialize in broadcast design, which can be the animated typography for credits on television shows and movies, information graphics of the kind that you see on news shows or late night talk shows, graphics that show scores and stats for any kind of sporting competition. These skills are often done in-house as well, though, for instance, ABC, NBC, CBS, they all have their own graphics departments. That goes for all the cable channels as well. They tend to have, unless they're a tiny little station, they tend to have their own graphics department. And a studio can specialize in After Effects or Maya, or shooting and editing videos will be subcontracted by an ad agency to work on an aspect of a campaign they're developing. Agencies will work together when necessary. Not everyone does everything, especially for those big mega campaigns. Some television shows and movies are either animated or have animated parts to them. The Simpsons started off on a live-action comedy sketch show back in the 80s as a short animated featurette. 30-something years later, their scripts, voice acting, storylines, and character designs are all done in the States, but the animation itself is done by an agency based in Korea. Then there are studios who do the big stuff, purely animated TV and movies like Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks, the big studios out there. They're the big heavy hitters and they employ lots of animators. But there's many, many other smaller studios. It's a competitive field and you work very long hours. Again, you can make a good living, but it does require specialist software knowledge. But lots of companies also incorporate little animations and videos into their projects. Some of this is done in After Effects, but also Photoshop or Animate or even iMovie or QuickTime. And other easy-to-learn programs that aren't very complicated. And they're not necessarily done by animation experts, but by designers who either use simple programs or just learn new software on the job. A little bit of After Effects can go a long way. These are relatively simple technical jobs that still need creative designers. The Pixar-type studios require a much higher level of technical knowledge, and you generally need more training beyond a bachelor's degree, either a master's or advanced certificate specializing in the relevant software. It really depends how interested you are in animation. But if you know a bit, it definitely helps. So once again, I'm suggesting that all of you include at least one small animation project in your portfolio. Ideally, 3 little animation projects. And it can just be an animated GIF, some kinetic type, an animated logo, something cool that shows off that you know a bit about animation. It could be some type over video footage. This could be a one-off project, but an even better would be an expansion of one of your existing projects. So if you have a branding project, you can just animate the logo. If you have an ad campaign, animate a banner ad. If you have a poster, you can animate it the way that you can see in New York subway stations that they animate those screen posters that are, up in some of the subway stations. Also, if you're interested in copywriting, write an ad and then animate the type. So you're showing off those 2 skills at the same time. Your portfolio is all about showing off your skills and creative ideas in interesting ways. And it does not have to be complicated. There are also studios that focus on web design. I know some of you this semester are interested in web design and UI UX, but even if you don't want to be an actual web designer. A little bit of web design knowledge is a great help in a studio. Often all you need to do is update an image or edit some copy on a website, and that little knowledge is a big plus. So then we have publishing. So book publishing, if you worked for one of those companies, you could work in an in-house studio designing book covers and interiors, digital ebooks, bookmarks, marketing for books, promotional collateral, email campaigns, banner ads, social media campaigns, as well as book catalogs, display posters, displays for bookstores. You might develop websites and apps for the books and the authors, and all the usual corporate communication involving the branding, like newsletters, annual reports, invites, all that corporate stuff. For magazine publishers, although the print magazine section has dwindled, there are still designers needed to design magazine pages. There are also magazine websites and apps that contain the printed material. So there's plenty of opportunity to work as designers and photographers in that world. The more you can show that you know about all the different channels and formats, the better. So if you love magazines, familiarize yourself with all these kinds of channels. So there was this, a couple years ago, there was this Vogue shoot for Rihanna. So they had a photographer who was taking a picture of Rihanna and, all these different dresses and stuff. Then there was a videographer who was videoing the whole shoot and, watching the makeup guys do their thing and the lighting guys do their thing. And then there was somebody taking pictures that were going up onto the social media Vogue site. And then the photos themselves ended up in the printed magazine and also on the website and also in the magazine app. So all of these things were happening around this one celebrity shoot. So if you're familiar with all the aspects of the different ways you can milk a situation like that, basically, and get as much content out of that situation, that's a really good thing to show in your portfolio. So then there's companies, ordinary companies, like the electricity company, the telephone company. I've heard the names of them change all the time, but there's this Time Warner or a law firm or an insurance company or a university like CityTech. All of these guys have their own communication and marketing departments. Some of you have already worked for the faculty commons at CityTech. If you got a job working for one of these companies, you wouldn't be in the creative industry per se, but you would be in the creative department within a different industry. If you work in the design department of a company, you work on that company's communication materials, their website, their apps, departmental reports, interdepartmental communications, annual reports, presentations, newsletters, brochures, business cards, so on and so forth. It can get repetitive because you tend to stay within the look of that brand, of that one company, but you really get to know the company. And there's a chance you could get promoted and develop a long-term relationship with that company. You could work your way into management and start making serious money. It's probably a bit more secure. They tend to have decent benefits, that is to say, health insurance, vacations, pensions, bonuses, all that kind of thing. Keep in mind, though, nothing is guaranteed in this world, but these kind of jobs tend to be more secure. Then there's civil service designers. When you work for the city or the state or the police department, the fire department, general services department, the education department, all of these guys have their own design departments. When I was a youngster, I worked in the City Publishing Center for the Department of General Services for the City of New York. A bit of a mouthful. Also at WNYC Radio, which used to be owned by the city. These were civil service jobs, where you take a test and eventually secure a job that is very difficult to get fired from. These jobs tend to not pay as much as the private sector, but they're much more secure and with better benefits. And you don't work as crazy hard as you would in, for instance, advertising. Designers go for these kind of jobs for the long-term security. Now, if you have kids or you plan to have kids, having a job that is stable with, guaranteed hours and not too much overtime, that's kind of a good place if you're a parent with young kids. They also tend to have longer vacations, and they tend to be union jobs. And union jobs means that it's, again, harder to get fired, more guarantees of all the benefits and pensions and holidays and the whole thing. Unions are a good thing, by the way. Then there are startups. There's a total direction switch here. This is the age of startups. When I was a designer, when I was just starting out, this was a concept nobody had ever heard of. Now everyone's starting up things. You're working for a bunch of people who have a crazy internet concept, and they don't necessarily know what they're doing. Chances are you're the only designer there. This can be good because you have the opportunity to do lots of different things. It can be bad because you might not have a talented art director that you can learn from. You might earn lousy money. You may earn no money. You might be offered share options instead. A share option means you're offered a small slice of the ownership of the startup. This is instead of getting paid, which this can be good and this can be bad. Often a startup will just die a death and you never get paid. But one former City Tech student worked for a startup and turned down the offer of share options in lieu of payment. She got paid a modest salary instead. But she regretted it when they sold the company for big money, and she would have made a chunk of change. It's a crazy world. Basically, it's a gamble. Just keep in mind that most startups fail, but some startups end up being Instagram. Your call. And then there's freelancing. So I'm going to do a whole other video about freelancing later in the semester because it's a big topic. Suffice to say, you're responsible for finding work, doing the work, chasing payments, learning new software, unpaid vacations, no sick pay, but you have a kind of freedom that a regular job does not give you. Most of my working life, I've been a freelance, and I vastly prefer it. I'll be going over the pros and cons in that video. The way I've described these working environments, I haven't taken AI into account. AI is changing things all the time. Some companies are embracing it, some are being a bit hands-off about it. There are copyright problems, which I alluded to in the video the other day. But there's a bunch of agencies that are starting to use it. So I can only reiterate, please spend some time getting to know one or two different AI softwares so you can know what to expect. Firefly is a great place to start because it's Adobe. What you are designing will not change, but how you get there will be changing. So when you're looking for work, keep these different kinds of jobs in your mind and try to recognize the pluses and minuses before they become a problem for you. So some things to keep in mind for this class. This class is pretty intense. You need to keep the productivity up. If you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, email me or send me a new project to work on. Remember, you need to update your work substantially every week. I can't expect you to do every single thing that I give you feedback on. And some weeks you're going to be overwhelmed with other classes sometimes. So, but I expect updates every week of some kind. Sometimes you just spend the whole week just working on your portfolio. So it's going to be up and down. If you run out of things to work on, upload new projects. Email me, tell me it's there, and you can get a head start on the new stuff. Work on your resume and logo and group assignments is work that is in addition to your project work. The project work has to happen every week. You're also doing your resume and logo. That's in addition to the other stuff. Resumes always end up taking longer than you think, so you can't let the project work fall by the wayside while you're sorting out your resumes. And some of you are looking for internships, and you kind of got to get your resume together. Now, you might have a resume already, but I think that this class will improve it if we can pull it together quickly. By the way, if you get your work finished in this class early in the semester, say by Easter or something, you're kind of in control of most of everything. You can spend the end of the semester just focusing on your other classes. For people that have the really intensive classes like, design team and internship and senior project, that's a very good place to be if you also have portfolio. Because what you're doing is you've set up everything, the website and the PDF and everything, and then the end of the semester is finishing those other classes, which the last second you can just plop into your portfolio, and all of a sudden your portfolio jumps up a notch. So if you can get more stuff done earlier in the semester, it works to your advantage and lessens your stress at the end of the semester, which I know can be pretty intense sometimes. Just a nonpartisan note here. Everyone in this class should vote. This is a very important election. I'm not going to say who you should vote for, but you're Americans who can vote. You should go out and vote. And there's still time to register to vote. You can do it online. But that's part of being in a democracy, is exercising that right. So go out and do that. You don't have to talk about it in your job interviews. You don't have to talk about it to me. Just do it, because that's what means you're a participant in our country. Thank you, and I'll see you on Sunday and Monday.